Ontario's Education Minister Stephen Lecce is facing backlash after saying parents must be fully involved in if their child chooses to use a different name or gender pronoun at school. The new education policy in Ontario follows similar ones in Saskatchewan and New Brunswick that require parental consent when children want to change their name or pronouns at school. Lecce did note that schools should be safe for all children and that teachers and school boards take home environments into account where there are exceptional circumstances or situations of potential harm to the child. Opponents to the policy say they will cause some students to go back into the closet or could also embolden people to express more homophobic or transphobic views. To break this down further, we're joined by Debbie Owusu-Akyeeah from the Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity. Debbie, this week Ontario became the third province to change their education policy to require parents' consent for students to use preferred names or pronouns at school. There's been a lot of backlash online. Can you explain why requiring parental consent for these things can create an unsafe environment for queer and trans students?
That's an excellent question. And the reason why something like this puts young people at risk is that it would expose them to potential abuse from parents. And that's essentially it. What we are seeing with these policies in different provinces and what has been flirted with by this province, but not actually enacted by proposed legislation change just yet, is forcing or encouraging teachers to out young people. If there is even a small risk of outing a young person to a parent who's unsupportive of LGBTQ people, that is a risk far too many that we want to avoid. And so that is the main issue. And key to all of this is the absolute removal or lack of engagement with young people's autonomy to determine when they'd like to share that information with a parent. Because if they don't do so out of their own volition, there's a reason behind that.
Would you say this policy makes it so that students have to choose between being outed at home or misgendered at school?
Yes, it does. It does put them at the risk of being outed at home or misgendered at school. And at the end of the day, it makes them navigating school, where they spend 8 hours of their day, 5 days a week, a challenge. And it's going to have adverse mental health effects on top of already having to navigate school as you grow and come of age. And to have this added layer and added challenge that we've seen LGBTQ youth speak about the need for affirming learning. It's a challenge that we don't want, and I think advocates should be best positioned to speak out against.
Do you think it's naive in some cases for Minister Lecce to say that parents want to be involved so that they can support their kids?
I wouldn't say naive. I would say that it's wishful thinking. Yes, so some people might determine the two as the same, but I would say it is wishful thinking. In an ideal world, I would like to believe that every parent wants the best for their child. But in reality, we still operate and live in a society where homophobia and transphobia exist. And there are parents who do not want their children to be trans or to be queer in any light. And that is the problem. Those parents, even if they may have the best intentions for their child, are also being exposed to rhetoric that has gone through the roof over the last couple of years that is positioning LGBTQ people as an other, as an infiltrator in our society, as morally corrupting the values of our society. That is happening at the same time where these conversations are taking place. And so we don't have a proper assessment of where every person is at. And so, yeah, it is wishful thinking, but the reality is, unless we've completely eliminated systemic oppression against LGBTQ people, not all parents should be given the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be supportive of their young children.
Thanks so much for joining us, Debbie.
Thank you so much for having me.